From Singapore to Rotterdam and London, the next speaker has been managing projects across Europe, Asia, and North America. As a director of social media at Thomson Reuters, he leads social media strategy, content marketing, and social selling B2B and B2C campaigns. Please welcome on stage Mr. Kelvin Lee.
So news and data is at the heart of the Thomson Reuters business. Together with industry insights and technology, we sell to customers in legal, tax and accounting, scientific, editorial, and the financial and risk markets that I work in. Arguably, we are probably one of the world's oldest fintech companies. But some of you might be asking, well, Thomson Reuters seems to be this news content data company. Surely you wouldn't have a problem with social media. Well, that might be true for our editorial side of the business. We publish millions, hundreds and thousands of articles every day, and we reach an audience of 1 billion. But in the division which I work for, where we sell market data platforms, managed services solutions, and compliance products, we did not have a social media strategy or a content plan. Perhaps we had a bit of a condition of what you see on screen right now. Anybody wrote or read Latin when they were younger? So some of you who might know might read this as Facebook phobia. I think we had a fear of social media. And it was originally coined by a Italian neuroscientist called Justin Moretto. It's now used to describe the anxiety caused by the fear of social media. So who would have thought that websites like LinkedIn and Facebook and Google Twitter would have such a profound impact on the way that we individually run our lives, as well as the way that we run our businesses? It's seeped into not just marketing and sales, but customer service, product development, supply chain, so on and so forth. No matter what industry you're in, no matter if you're large or a startup company, I think you will see that some of the biggest market leaders in your industry will be the most connected companies. Think IBM, they were on earlier, Salesforce, SAP, Oracle. They've managed to create social business ecosystems around themselves, their customers, their suppliers, their influencers. And for the purpose of today, I'd like to make the distinction. Social business is primarily an organizational, communication, and collaborative strategy. But social media, it's primarily about online engagement, community engagement, and to nurture leads and to grow your business. So you might be a social business and not do very much on social media, but you might do a lot of social media but not be a social business. I'm going to be talking about some key aspects of which will be the eight foundations of makes a social business ecosystem work for you. So let's take a step back, because Google, don't take it from me, Google says that today's business buyers do not contact suppliers until more than half of the decision before they speak to your salesperson, your CEO, your product development. They've already made more than half the decision whether not to go with you or your competitors. And many of you would have seen the typical marketing funnel. There's a big opening at the top, and then you're trying to convert prospects into leads, and the leads into opportunities. Today, the reality is like this. It's your opportunity to help shape your customer's agenda in the early part, the first 57%. They're attending events like this. They're on digital, they're visiting your website, they're on social. So here are the key 8 foundations of the ecosystem which drive leads. I'll talk about them now. Ideally, all of them should run in parallel, but if I may suggest, start from the top. Because how social is a CEO, and if you are as part of the senior management team sitting out there, how social are you? Many of us say we're not leveraging the full power of social media, and yet our CEOs, the leaders of our organizations, they're not leveraging the full power of it. They're not convinced even about the value of social. Well, don't take it from me. Vala Afshar, Chief Digital Evangelist, Salesforce, reports to Mark Benioff, says that if email and phone is the only way to reach you or your senior leaders, you're clearly on the wrong side of the digital divide. So aim to have at least one of your senior leaders on board. There will be one who gets it. Work with that person, scale up the efforts. It demonstrates commitment to the rest of the organization, humanizes your company. It's an opportunity for that person to be an industry thought leader. But of course, this doesn't come without personal challenges. Oh, social media is not for me. Maybe our customers are not there. So partner up with communications team, your PR team, etc., and play on the concept of envy. Because if you work on one, it works, you report the KPIs, more will come across the world. So let's talk about measurement then. We talk about, we don't measure it properly, but do you know what you're measuring? Because probably only 16 to 18% of those of us in this room are able to completely measure, or most of the time able to measure ROI. So define leads, because I'm assure you that even the concept definition of leads in your business differs greatly from sales, marketing, and product development. B2B social media is not about likes or retweets. It's about giving sales conversational topics to engage, for leads prospecting, for growing your business. So on the top of this slide, the whole range of metrics you can use, page views, conversion rates, etc. I'm going to add in another layer of complexity. Here is another table of KPIs. It's impossible to manage all of this unless you have big budgets and have multiple agencies to help you do this. So agree on 5 to 7 metrics, which I believe set a benchmark, track it over 3 months, 6 months, or a year. Social analytics, I met some of you yesterday and today, are increasingly being thought of in organizations to combine data and insights, data and visualization into driving some insights. But it's a crowded marketplace. Some of you might have spoken to providers like Brandwatch and Crimson Hexagon, Sysomos, etc. This grid attempts to map all of these 20 plus 30 odd providers into a table. But my suggestion is speak to the CEO and the lead product engineer to understand the vision, understand what the innovation agenda is. And don't forget about client onboarding. Having you to use the product itself to fully use your investment is quite key in this. Content-wise, this table, this infographic shows you a sense of types of content versus the most difficult to produce. Articles, case studies, videos, and infographics. If you're doing a lot of those, you're on the right track. Many of us have been doing white papers. As you can see, the 4th most effective, but one of the most difficult to produce as well. And to an earlier speaker as well, 60-70% of content is never really seen. That's because it's irrelevant. One of the number one reasons is that it's irrelevant to the target audience. So adopt your white paper strategy. This is the turkey concept coined by LinkedIn. Basically, you have a giant turkey on your dinner table. You slice and dice it up into soups, salads, sandwiches, etc. So do the same for your research paper or your white paper. You can split it up into blogs, infographics, webinars, videos, and slide presentations as well. It helps to extend the lifetime value of your investment into your content. And 90% as well of suppliers say that they pick customers who can provide enough content in the different stages of the buying journey. So how does this happen? You develop trust. As trust develops over time, move from helpful insight to challenging insight to product information to help them validate, help your prospects validate that you are indeed the right partner and you can help close the deal as quickly as possible. So here is a bit of a checklist, quite a few things. But number one thing is sit down and listen with your sales teams and understand what they're likely to share. Sit down with your customers and see what sort of content resonates with them. Because, again, mentioned, I think our brain is set to process visuals 60,000 times faster than text. So optimize your content for visual. We'll combine information with a big story, with a clear goal in mind. Your customers can actually learn something from it, all wrapped up into a visual form. And this is a few examples of how we've done it ourselves. Many of us have been there. We've published a blog article, we've spent hours, we've inserted an infographic, we've even inserted a video. Because if content is king, then distribution and amplification is King Kong. Don't just create content and think that your content will magically find its own audience. You come back the next day and there are only 5 page views. So play across all channels, right? Obviously, a B2B platform, companies tend to focus more on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, SlideShare. But have small little pilots to understand what works for your audience. And on LinkedIn, obviously, it's more professional. It's a target audience. You can publish with intent to strike up your conversations with the followers on there and the prospects that you are trying to engage with. On YouTube, we have lots of examples of how we have interviewed our customers, our own employees. We've done how-to videos and, of course, some animated video graphics as well. We're also on Instagram. Please follow us. It shows the story behind and the humans and the people that work behind these desks that does all the great stuff. So in terms of organic social distribution, at this stage, your goal is to find the top 10%. Because I believe that there is a 90-10 rule. 10% of your content, no matter what, is going to drive 90% of your traffic and engagement. Some stats say 1% drives 85%. But the goal is to find 10% and bet big. Put money behind some of the 10% of these stories using a combination of programmatic advertising, which we talked about earlier this afternoon, on opportunities such as LinkedIn sponsored campaigns, Facebook ads, Twitter ads, content placement networks like Taboola, Outbrain, etc. Something that you cannot ignore. And of course, I think all of you have a secret weapon within your organization, your colleagues, because I believe that the employees are the stitching behind your brand and organization and story. What if you could harness the power of the social business for each one of them to be able to be brand ambassadors, to be able to go to the market and your customers to sell that story on social much more effectively and quickly? This is something that your competitors cannot take away easily. It also humanizes the organization. Your customers want to buy from people at the end of the day. Gaggle M says that just 60 employees can increase your company's reach by 1,000%. How is that so? Well, if you just add up the average number of followers and the network of that 60 employees, it's usually 10 to 15 times more than any of your official companies following in any of your social platforms. And this is what is done to our efforts across the world. Content is being shared not just from the marketing team, but our sales teams and market development team. So rolling out a social sharing platform, two aspects in this list which I'll focus on. One is, again, sit down with your salespeople and understand what is the sort of content that will be comfortable to share. And also, if you have a large sales force, think about leveraging enterprise social sharing platforms. LinkedIn has launched a platform called LinkedIn Elevate, Gaggle M, Smart Share, so on and so forth. Last but not least, that's the point of why we're here today as well. This is a social, cultural, organizational change. It doesn't come without collaboration with PR, IT department, legal, compliance. So partner up, because I believe that if you can do this, you can move fast, you can test, you understand what works, you move into a different department, and you can scale. So in summary, start from the top, start with one, leverage on envy, agree on 5 to 7 metrics, find your top 10 performers, optimize your content for visual impact, play across all channels, put some investment into your top 10%, think about employee advocacy, collaborate, and you can move fast and scale. Thank you very much for listening. Please connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter.